We spent the past several videos talking about the life of Jacob, who got his name changed to Israel. Now you might remember from his story that Jacob Israel had 12 sons. Well, the rest of Genesis focuses in on the life of one of those sons. And we're going to see how his life went, how well he got along with his brothers, and what God did with a messy family. So the story begins with the family all together in the Promised Land. And Jacob, the father, has a son named Joseph. And he loves Joseph way more than all of the other brothers. And it says that he loved him most because, well, he was born when he was old, and he was born to his favorite wife, Rachel. Now, if that wasn't bad enough, he went and made sure everyone knew it by buying a really fancy, really nice coat for Joseph. And the Bible tells us this: when his brothers saw that their father loved him more than any of them, they hated him and could not speak a kind word to him. Now, I know I've made this point before, but I need to say it again, and we need to remember it as we hear Joseph's story. Just because somebody does something in the Bible does not make it right. Now, we need to keep this in mind as we hear Joseph's story, because Joseph's dad played favorites. That's not right. Joseph's brothers couldn't find a single kind word to say about their brother. We're going to see that this story, this family, gets a lot worse before it gets better. So the thing is, Joseph, the favorite brother, also would have dreams. And it certainly seemed like these dreams meant something. Let's listen. Joseph had a dream, and when he told it to his brothers, they hated him all the more. He said to them, "Listen to this dream I had. We were binding sheaves of grain out in the field when suddenly my sheaf rose and stood upright, while your sheaves gathered around mine and bowed down to it." His brothers said to him, "Do you intend to reign over us? Will you actually rule us?" And they hated him all the more because of his dreams and what he had said. Then he had another dream, and he told it to his brothers. "Listen," he said, "I had another dream, and this time the sun and moon and 11 stars were bowing down to me." When he told his father as well as his brothers, his father rebuked him and said, "What is this dream you had? Will your mother and I and your brothers actually come and bow down to the ground before you?" His brothers were jealous of him, but his father kept the matter in mind. So Joseph wasn't picking up on the fact that his brothers did not like him. Joseph wasn't picking up on the fact that people wouldn't like to hear that they were going to bow down to him. People in general, but family members, and older family members to boot. I know I would not be thrilled at all if my little sister told me something like that. So what kinds of things do you think Joseph's brothers are planning to do to get even with him? Now, I bet you could come up with a lot of plans to get even with a sibling, but I hope that you did not come up with the plan that Joseph's brothers did. "Here comes that dreamer," they said to each other. "Come now, let's kill him and throw him into one of these cisterns and say that a ferocious animal devoured him. Then we'll see what comes of his dreams." They planned to kill their brother. Again, just because somebody does something in the Bible does not make it in and of itself right or good. Well, thankfully for Joseph, one of his brothers had a slightly softer heart and said, "Hey, let's just throw him in the dry well," hoping that he'd be able to come back later and rescue his brother. Well, the gang said sure, and then they sat down to eat lunch when they saw a group of people on their way to Egypt selling stuff coming just their way. They added greed to their plan and decided to sell their little brother into slavery. So that's how Joseph ended up in Egypt, as a slave. His brothers were jealous and greedy, so they sold him as a slave. And the guy who bought Joseph, his name was Potiphar, and Potiphar worked for Pharaoh, the king of Egypt. And it seems that Potiphar and Joseph worked well together, and Joseph worked really hard and really well, even to the point where Potiphar trusted him with absolutely everything. And it seems that Joseph had made the best out of a really bad situation. Well, that is until Joseph got accused of doing something that he wasn't supposed to be doing. You see, Potiphar's wife went and said that Joseph had been doing things that he really should not have done. But Joseph didn't do any of them. But anyways, Potiphar flew into a rage and threw Joseph into prison, into the same prison that the prisoners of Pharaoh were being held in. And that's where we're going to leave Joseph for today. He went from being his dad's favorite to hated by his brothers, to sold as a slave, to accused of something that he didn't do, and is now in prison. And that's kind of a bummer of a story. And it would be if that was the end of the story, but it's not. There actually is quite a bit more of Joseph's story. And when we get back next time, we're going to see how God took a certifiably bad situation and made good come out of it.